Good morning, everybody. Just a very brief introduction. My name is Christopher Cleveland, or Chris Cleveland. I'm Head of Sustainability of Freightliner, based in the UK. My role has been a journey for 18 months and really kind of a snapshot here of 18 months of sustainability at Freightliner. So before, Freightliner had a couple of test certificates, no strategy, no idea, no direction. As a business, we operate rail, road and inland and port terminals. So kind of whereabouts shipping containers and ships will dock into the UK ports. We will then move those shipping containers around the UK country, providing services across the UK to big organisations and small organisations as well. So on average, we've got 400 locos or trains. So if I use the word loco, I apologise. It's trains, but I'm conditioned to talk as a rail person now. So it's locomotives that will move across the UK. Predominantly diesel locomotives, and I'll explain as we go into the complexities there with diesel, electrification and the UK mainline as well. We move on average 700,000 shipping containers and 32 million tonnes of bulk freight. So that is cement, aggregates, potash, waste. No coal at the moment, but there are talks of the UK reopening coal mines to support the steelworks in South Wales and across the country as well to stop the shipments coming in, and that becomes a bit of a conundrum of what do you do as a sustainability professional to kind of back coal and the movement of growth, but also then the social values of what it means for the South Wales country and steelworks as well. Kind of that shuts down the economic and the social impact as well. So there's lots of conundrums that I have and kind of being the voice and the conscience of the business. I haven't included kind of the stats and the details really here, but we kind of science-based target of 1.5 degree trajectory. We are looking to be 55% reduction against our baseline of 2020 by 2033 to be net zero by 2050. We are signed up and disclosed for the first time against CDP. We're also in the state of EcoVadis as well, and recognise the importance of our supply chain and our presence there. We are our customers' scope 3 category 4 greenhouse gas emissions. So everything we do, every single loco that is fueled with diesel becomes scope 3 for our customers. And it's kind of the complexity there is at the moment the focus is on scope 1 and scope 2 for us as well, but equally we're trying to influence our customers to see actually the future is going to be scope 3. The targets aren't necessarily being set against science-based target for scope 3. So really my role now is preparing us as a business to be ready to respond to our customers' needs and be at the forefront. So this is about the planning as well as the right here, right now. And I think the best way that I can describe the UK, the role that I play in Freightliner is VULCA. So there's volatility, there's uncertainty, there's complexity, and there's ambiguity. I'll give you a bit of background into the kind of the railway network. I believe it here in Germany, and please correct me if I'm wrong, 62% electrification. In the UK, it's 38% electrified, with no aspirations or direction of doing further electrification. So we are stuck with an antiquated, very much diesel-powered, liquid-powered network. We have a target set by the government that isn't yet into statutory instrument or law, but there'll be no diesel allowed to run on the UK mainline by 2040. So in 17 years' time, there'll be no diesel allowed to run anywhere across the UK mainline. We have an aging asset. So our assets, our locomotives are 30 to 40 years old. They're about my age. And we are continually to repair them. We're doing great maintenance and we've got to keep them sweating because we have no idea what the future loco needs to look like because we don't know what the railway looks like. We don't own the infrastructure, we run on it. So the UK is owned by Network Rail, who do the maintenance, the operations, the upgrades, and that's funded by the Department for Transport, so internal government. That's then funded by Treasury itself. It would cost about 8 billion UK pounds to electrify the infields that we need to open up 95% of UK freight. The UK, as you're probably aware, is in a really, really bad way economically. We don't have a great deal of money. Funding is going elsewhere. We have problems with schools that have kind of got concrete that is kind of aero bubbles that's fallen apart, so the investment has to go there. We're having to fund social care, and Birmingham City Council has gone into bankruptcy over in the last couple of months because it cannot fund and sustain its cost spend. So we are not great economically, and therefore to ask for funding, further funding for electrification is very, very, very low on this scale. When you compare our emissions, there's 1.4% of all emissions across the UK is rail. So again, it's a very, very, very small pebble on a big beach. For us, we have to make a decision in about 6 years' time as a business. If diesel is going to be removed, of what do we do with our assets? What do we buy? What do we invest? It's going to cost about £500 million, so £500 million investment into the new loco fleet. And it's going to take roughly 10 years to build. The UK is different to Europe in many, many different ways now, but the gauging system on the railway is different as well. So therefore, we can't just go to a European manufacturer and ask for off the shelf. It has to be bespoke based on the gauging systems of the railway and the size and the tunnels. So we again have to go for a bespoke build, which isn't kind of incentivising companies to want to buy 150 locomotives. So therefore, it's going to cost more. So they're the complexities. I didn't know that when I joined the role, if I'd be honest, 18 months ago. I thought this was going to be a little bit of a nicer number than it was. So how do I deal with that? And it's kind of turning Volker into a vision and understanding the clarity and being agility and driving that through the company with my voice of sustainability. If I concentrated on the reds, I'd have eco-anxiety every single day. I'd want to throw the towel in. The challenge would be too great. I've got to focus on the positives and see the good that comes out of the work that we do. And the response and how to drive that through the business and how I'm approaching that and kind of leading the way with my little small team. Innovate to implement. Innovation is key for us. We've got to find ways of how do we change diesel in our locomotives? How do we not consume as much? How do we adapt to the needs of the locomotives that we've got to reduce the emissions, to save the money, to reinvest that elsewhere? Innovation is really, really key for us. We have got some fantastic universities and academics that we work with. We take people that work out of a shed somewhere in the middle of the country with an idea and to see actually what could that do, how could that be, to kind of fund, put some money in to research, because it could be the unique magic bullet that could help us transition through. We're changing our way that we look at how we respond to a growth mindset, forward thinking with that learn fast attitude. So learn fast for me is to fail fast. If something isn't working, it isn't delivering the results, there's no need to keep flogging it. There's no need to keep funding it. There's no need to keep pushing and pushing and pushing. It may not work, but it's really key to keep that corporate memory. So it's retaining the information, whether it's we don't succeed, it doesn't have the outcome that we desire. We need to keep that corporate memory because the desire, the hope is through the innovation, the advancements in technology, the advancements in knowledge, and the advancements in society may enable that to come to life again in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, and 15 years' time. I'm talking about my legacy is kind of what a driver here is to leave the business in a good space, but also to retain that information that it needs to be able to make that adapt to change. Embrace failure. This is a really, really hard one to explain to an internal business because it wants to win, it's competitive, it wants to keep going. But to embrace failure is a real strength because it's the learning, it's the evaluation and it's the adaptation that works for us as a business. We have to accept failure. We know it's going to happen and therefore we have to embrace that. We have to reduce the fear, this fear culture. If we fail, we're bad, we're not good. Actually, failure is good. You can't always win. I say for football, you're never always going to win the game. But if you lose, it's how do you work backwards? How do you understand what's gone wrong and how do you make that better next time? How do you evolve yourself? And then key for us is that success and failure go hand in hand. We have to celebrate success, but we have to celebrate failure as well. We have to talk about it. We have to share that, not hide it away. We have to really be open, transparent, and honest with ourselves as a business. We can celebrate, we can go gung-ho, we can be marketing, but actually the failure is really, really key as well. And we have to be in a position to do that. And therefore, we have to share to the exec board where stuff doesn't go well. Admit our errors, admit our mistakes, because I think that will drive a culture and a working environment that's really, really key to achieve our net zeros. It can't be the Instagrammable of everything is perfect, everything is awesome all the time that's going up to the exec. I need to be very open and transparent to get the buy-in, to get the drive in as well. And what does that look like as a professional? Well, it's twofold, really. At times, I can be the catalyst with the idea, but then I have to play different roles. And what's really, really key for me and what I've learned through my career is I have to go and understand the business. I can't sit on the outside and kind of look and say, we need to be reducing our emissions by 55% by 2033. There's the target, go away. I need to think like our commercial team. I need to think like our finance team, like our engineering team, our operations team. I need to understand what their targets are. I need to kind of work alongside and bridge the gaps between them. And actually, how do I adapt and change in the way that I approach our commercial team about growth, our finance team about revenue and profit? How do I make my message adapt to their needs rather than the other way round? I always feel it's easier for me to influence and to challenge in a way that talks like a finance person, that talks like a contract manager, commercial manager, understand our customers' needs, rather than them trying to understand sustainability, which is complex, is full of jargon, is full of acronyms, it's full of complexity, and not everybody's going to understand it and be an eco-warrior and stand here and say we want to change the world. But other times, it's managing stakeholders of where an idea can start in the corner, at the bottom, but work its way around the business. And then I have to manage stakeholders and the information that's going there to enable and keep the tolerances going, but make sure that the key senior stakeholders are fully informed, fully briefed of what that means to them as well. No surprises for anyone of the part of the business. And that's tough. That's absolutely tough. And for me, the reflection has been about the resilience in myself as well. So where it was Mental World Health Day in the UK yesterday, it's really, really key, I think, as sustainability professionals to be looking at our own well-being, our own resilience, and how we respond to that change, the eco-anxiety, because we're going to be the ones at the forefront leading that, having the pushback, having the challenges, and not always succeeding. And therefore, how do I reflect that as me as a person and make sure that I don't become overwhelmed and I can be the best version of myself to my team, to my exec, and to the business? And the plan is defining the problem of what are we looking at? Where are those areas of improvement? And what's the incremental improvement plans as well? So each one of these little circles has a series of programs, has a series of works, has a series of action owners to deliver it. The key for us is growth, is to turn profit, is to kind of please and satisfy our investors, and that's where modal shift comes in. Modal shift is moving HGVs off the road in the UK and moving the movement of goods and services on the rail. That will give up to about 76% reduction in carbon emissions against roads, and that's removing on average 126 HGVs for every train that's moved for moving aggregate or bulk itself. That's great, absolutely great sales pitch for our customers. Overnight, by moving from a HGV diesel fleet to a diesel fleet on locomotives, they can save those emissions. Brilliant. But that increases our scope 1. Our diesel consumption will go up each and every time, and we've got an absolute reduction. So therefore, it's balancing how do we sustain growth, profit, revenue as a business, but also how do we reduce those emissions? And that's kind of the complexity there of helping the UK as a whole move itself. Steering groups and kind of influence and lobbying is so key for us, being in the heart of government, being in the heart of the industry, being in the heart of all those regulatory bodies. We need the voice to hear that we need change, we need clarity, we need certainty of what does the future of the railway look like, so we can then back the right horse. By not backing the right horse or by staying static, our business will finish in 10, 15 years because our competition will make the right decisions, and therefore we won't be able to move and delivering to our customers what they're needing as part of their scope 3 reductions itself. Data and analytics. We've looked at our systems, we've looked at our data, and we've recognised the importance of scope 3 data for our customers. More so than for our scope 1 and scope 2 emissions, we focus very much on scope 3 for our customers. So at the moment, we're able to give our customers per box CO2 emissions from moving from somewhere in the UK all the way to the final mile. Why have we done that? It's what our customers need. It reduces the kind of ambiguity and the need for good scope 3 data. It's a real problem for us when we're looking at our scope 3, and therefore we can solve a problem for our customers that gives us a kind of a head start within the freight industry itself, and therefore be able to offer something that's unique to our customers, that's traceable, that's transparent, and actually can be downloaded and manipulated or presented in any way that our customer needs as well. We can hotspot exactly where carbon emissions are coming from, and we can drive efficiencies in the railway network as well for our customers. All about delivering for our customers at the moment for scope 3 emissions. Why are we doing that? Because that's going to have the impact on our scope 1 and scope 2. If we can get our customers moving to different types of fuel, paying extra money, it will help our scope 1 and scope 2 and still grows the business. It's really finding those sweet spots between lower carbon and lower cost. And then we've got the array of different ways of alternative fuels, technology and behaviours, site upgrades, dual fuels, alternative traction. And for us, the last point is the electrification infill of getting government to spend some money on the UK network to electrify and commit to the electrification. That gives us certainty that we can buy electric fleets. Power those through PPAs. That's zero emissions on our market-based locations, with the hope that the UK network by 2035 will be 100% renewable. That gives us zero location-based methodology emissions as well. That's the dream, that's the desire, and that's kind of the role that I play. Our emissions are slightly different to other presentations that I've kind of seen today. Our scope 1, 75% is diesel traction, so that is railway usage. That's humongous. If we find a solution for that, I'm laughing. But it's going to cost more, and I'll go into why that's going to cost more on the next slide itself. And that then has an impact on our scope 3 as well. So roughly we are 62% scope 1 and scope 2 emissions right now, and about 38% scope 3 emissions. So we are right on the borderline between the science-based targets of that 40% as well. Again, materiality-wise, electric vehicles, travel is non-existent for us. Waste is very, very small. It's all about fuel. It's all about the traction and what we purchase. Our purchasing of goods and services is broken down per category by spend, and then it's going after our supply chain, of our biggest supply chain spend via procurement, to start working down how do we get the granularity of the data. The positive with scope 3, and there's very little positives, but I want to kind of just flag it. Scope 3 is giving us the ability as a business to go out and talk to absolutely fabulous businesses and innovators and ideas out there. And we wouldn't have done that by just sitting there waiting for the data. We've gone proactively out to engage with groups of people, ideas, theories, academics, to understand what's going on and be pointed into other people that have been working on that. And that's to get data. But behind that, it's given us innovation, it's given ideas of how do we blend hydrogen with diesel. Could that give us a solution? Could we do carbon capture and use scrubbers and condense that into the locomotives itself? How do we use batteries and use battery technology better? All of those have come through scope 3 emission engagement. So there is hope that it isn't just about data and getting that perfect data. That will come. It will have to come as everybody looks at scope 1 and starts moving that into scope 3 data. But the conversation is so key. That enables the change, and therefore that could influence us as a business. And what are we looking at in the near term and the long term itself? So we've got HVO, so hydro-treated vegetable oil. It feels like that is the saviour for most of Europe as well, and in the UK. It does have its complexities of where it comes from and the traceability of the supply chain. For us, we've got that through our supplier, and it does the audits as well. For me, that's a short-term transition. That's going to get hoovered up elsewhere, HVO. Next 5 years or so, I can't see that being a solution. At the moment, it costs double than what it does for diesel in the UK. So it's cheaper to run diesel. HVO, it's double that price. Our customers don't want to pay yet for HVO. There's great conversations. There's great kind of, oh, yes, we'd like to go in it. Economically, and the way that the world is at the moment, there isn't a desire to increase costs through the supply chain of moving those boxes as well. So it's always very good, but so close, but so near. The price is going to have to differentiate to make that viable. And at the moment, that's holding there again. We've got a solution, and we're going to keep it there. For me, it's moving into synthetic fuels, and how do we kind of move into a cheaper solution and scalability of that. We're working with companies right now in the UK that are producing at a very small scalability of synthetic fuels. This will give us zero emissions or net zero emissions through the capturing of carbon, the splitting of water into hydrogen and oxygen, blending that together. That then gives us a fake diesel. That will give us time. And I think time is really, really key with our locomotives and our asset base. It gives us time to make the decision. It gives us the air cover, but importantly, it helps us reduce our carbon emissions to achieve our target. That allows our finance team to know where do we spend that £500,000. That's really, really key. I want to hold fire as much as possible, spending that money on the locomotives, but also having to drive down our emissions itself. And then fuel efficiency and technologies and behaviours. Something that I haven't spoken about is our drivers. So our drivers are in our locomotives 6-7 hours a day, driving and moving. And I don't know if anybody's been in a locomotive cab to sit there and ride with a driver, but the way the locomotives are built 30, 40 years ago was very Very basic, very, very, very basic. There's no toilets on board. There's a little heat pan that you can heat a saucepan with some soup up, and you might have an outdoor socket. That's it. The heating comes from a small little panel that's at knee height here for the driver, to provide heating and cooling. In the summertime in the UK, when it's 30 degrees, the cab can be up to 40, 45 degrees inside, so it needs air conditioning. In the winter, it's pretty cold as well, so it means you're going to need heating. The only way that you can do that is by keeping the engine idling and ticking over. So you could be sat at a sidings or stopped at a red light for 3 hours at a time, and the locomotive needs to be on because the driver needs to feel the cool or the heat. There's no way at the moment to switch it off or stop idling. We're burning stupid amounts of litres. We consume roughly 60 million litres in our locomotive fleet of diesel. We could save about 15% by investing in different technology, of a battery technology that allows you to switch into an auxiliary mode that gives the power to the AC to provide heating and cooling. That's whereabouts we're going to have to work with our drivers. It's having to appreciate what is it like to drive a locomotive. We can't enforce and say, idling, after 15 minutes, shut down the engine, because we're going to get pushback. We're not working with our people. We're not working with those that do the job day in, day out. We've got to understand the complexities that they experience to overcome those through technological advancements as well. So we are looking now at how do we put auxiliary batteries into a very, very small space in the engine that then could switch over, that could reduce the idling by half, and that could be down to about 2.5 hours per locomotive across the UK fleet as well. That saves us fuel. That saves us money on the diesel. That can then go into the investment of, can that then be there to save not into profit, but into investment for HVO, synthetic fuels, or actually alternative technology that can help further reduce our emissions. I'm really, really wanting to find those key savings that go back in to help support and fund our ways of working. And then the infill itself for the longer term is the clarity of infill electrification, if that's going to happen, the infrastructure. Hydrogen is something that's happening in Europe, which is absolutely fabulous to see, and I'm really, really jealous to see hydrogen in France and in Germany. The infrastructure isn't there in the UK. It's never going to be there in the next 40 years, if I'll be perfectly honest. We may get it through our pipes as a blended, but it's not going to be there as a solution for our locomotives. And the availability of what fuel's going to be there, what is it we're going to need, how are we going to power that? It's really, really key. It's fundamental and scratching our heads of that. That's cost effective for our business. And then the electric traction itself. So we have 28 electric fleet that we're able to run very, very minimally across the 38% of the UK mainline itself. Again, cost of living crisis, the price of electricity in the UK went stupidly. We were paying upwards of £300 a megawatt hour, where we were paying beforehand 90, post-COVID, 60, pre-COVID. Stupid amounts of money that we were spending on electric traction through the kind of hedging arrangements itself that we're locked into, that we can't get ourselves out of, fixed term deals. That sent electric traction costs to moving boxes skywards. It was not feasible, and there were conversations of actually, do we run more diesel on our moving the goods rather than electric because of the cost and having to balance it. It's perplexing and perverse to think in this day and age where the science is telling us climate change is here, we need to decarbonise, we're having to make backward steps because the economics and the way of the political, social, economic side is just fundamentally driving us as a business to keep our heads above water ultimately. So we're now in discussions about how do we get 100% renewable at a cost-effective solution and look at hedging and PPAs, be it virtual or corporate power purchase agreements, to give us a fixed price, reduce volatility and that certainty of price that we can start working out how do we best use efficiently our electric traction. As I said beforehand, the hope is that the UK network will be 100% renewable by 2035, so that will give us no worries, thank you. And then the infill electrification strategic areas as well. But we can't do this without the people. Our people, the people that we work through across the network and the net value chain are so key for us. The data is needed, it's important, it's the input, it's the outcome. But without these great people that I have the pleasure of working with, engaging with and thinking, the innovators, the doers, the change agents themselves, I'm never going to be able to achieve those targets that I've set and kind of directed the board as well. So it's key that we create the working environment, that its failure is a success. We learn from the mistakes, we embrace the changes, we reduce the fear and the mistakes and the errors. If stuff doesn't work, we create an environment that gives hope to us as a business and allows the voice and those thoughts and feelings of how do we adapt and change to succeed and change and achieve it. And I'll leave with the Avengers. The kind of my 4-year-old and my 3-year-old are constantly watching the Avengers, and I've seen, I don't know which one it is, but New York, whereabouts they saved New York. I think it might be reassembled. There isn't a magic bullet out there, and there's no Avengers to assemble, which is absolutely unfortunate for us because we have to do it ourselves. But I look at the characters, and actually they're in us, they're in our people, the people that work at Freightliner. We've got Hulk, the muscle that's going to smash through problems. We've got Iron Man, who's kind of the innovator, the kind of the forward planner, the person that creates these weird and wonderful machines. We've got Black Widow, the resilience and the strength to keep going. Hawkeye, he's got vision and can pinpoint. And then we've got the power of Thor through engineering and his hammer, and then Captain America to lead the way. They're our Avengers, and they're in us, they're in our people, and the value of our people is going to help us decarbonise. And I'll just say thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Chris.